Welcome back, everyone, to the BE Chamber podcast. We are super excited to be back. Another episode number 12. And I am here with our head of ESD, Keba. How are you doing? Are you well?
I'm all good. How are you doing? Yeah?
I'm good, thanks. It's always good to have you back. I know you've recorded in one of our previous sessions. You've given us some good insight in terms of the topic of ESD. And we're back again to talk about three important topics, I would say, in our session today. And we're going to be starting off with the topic of Workers' Day. The month of May, we've just celebrated Workers' Day, and it's quite significant in South African history, and also it's something that we should never forget as a country. So Kev, I want to get right into it because there's quite a few things I want to chat to you about in our session today, but just starting off with Workers' Day, what does it mean to you?
Look, to me, I think it's I'm going to be a bit controversial.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because my philosophy is that we work to make things better.
Mm-hmm.
And part of work is part of improving lives, livelihood, the economy, and the broader spectrum in terms of how people engage with the world or engage with others. Now, in doing so, by taking a day away from Workers' Day, for me, it takes away that function. But the second part for me is that it has basically been reduced to a day where people just parties and have braais and everything.
Mm.
So that basically makes it lose its significance. Then that for me is a problem. Because what it does, it takes away what it was intended for, but it basically replaces it with the softer side of things. And so essentially, the behavior around it basically reduces its significance.
Yeah.
That's for me the problem. So ideally, and you will understand, in terms of where we are as an economy, we're not growing because we're not working hard enough or smart enough, and because of the kind of unemployment rate that we have as well, it basically can create a challenge.
Yeah.
So like as I said, I'm slightly on the more controversial side.
No, I agree with you. I mean, we also sometimes find that, people do not even understand why we have this holiday, the history behind it, and also understand why this day is even a public holiday, what we were meant to do on this day. And you said parties and not really, remembering why we have this day. And it's important that I think we educate. So just in our last recording, for those that have seen it, we spoke about Freedom Day. And Bridget, our colleague at the Chamber, also mentioned the same. And we had a discussion about, do the youth actually know why we have Freedom Day, or do they just see it as a public holiday? And also with Workers' Day, I think the same significance is there, to understand why we're celebrating such a day. But to your point, I guess we need to work smarter and harder, and also try not to lose, what we're trying to achieve as a country in terms of growing our economy. And I think days like that, if we don't use it wisely to remember, but also be productive in some form, we kind of then lose the essence of what we're trying to achieve. So in terms of Workers' Day, I mean, we've seen quite a lot of celebrations happening. We've seen a lot of events taking place. Do you still feel like those are significant? I mean, do you feel like, there should be, talks taking place? Do you feel like there should be still info sessions around it? Do you think it's still relevant?
Look, there should be a lot of info session. There should be a lot of positive PR around. There should be a lot of teaching around it. Mm-hmm. But the best way I believe it can be done is through helping people to understand the significance and of what I'm going to call of work in particular, because people generally take work as going to work and coming back and getting a salary. That's it. But the point is that it's much bigger than that. Mm-hmm. It's basically bigger because if you work, whatever you do, you are co-creator of a solution in the future.
Yeah.
Either we like it or not. And that solution can just sometimes be a good solution, sometimes can be a bad solution. Mm-hmm. Based on how you approach it and based on how you work. Yeah. So essentially we should basically desist from the whole idea of laziness, but to an idea of productivity.
Yeah.
Because sometimes people can get to be too busy doing nothing.
Yeah.
And we find out that basically in that business we lose the essence of what has to happen, and our responsibility as human beings, in as far as Workers' Day and in as far as basically our responsibility to each other and the economy of this country.
Yeah, no, of course. And you mentioned the concept of work, and I think that work comes in different forms. You've got your employment as an employees, and then you've got your entrepreneurs and business owners. I think that whatever is happening in your own journey as an individual, always think about, I'm actually contributing to the economy. Do you agree with that statement?
No, definitely. That's what it's about.
Yeah.
It's about, and hence I call it the co-creator of the future. Yeah. Because in that it means that whatever you do, you basically add some value to the future, and to the existence of the economy, to the growth of the economy. And also in adding that solution, it basically means that someone's life will be much easier because of what you've done.
Of course.
Be it business, be it social life, be it health, be it teaching, in any sphere. So the concept of work becomes much more crucial than how we basically perceive it to be.
No, of course. So I think that the month of May is quite significant to our country. I think that you've made some points on Workers' Day to say that we need to work smarter. We need to obviously make sure that we're contributing to the economy. There's productivity taking place, and also important for us to continuously remember why we're celebrating this day. Remember, the struggles that come from our past to then get to this point to allow people to be in certain environments of work, either as an entrepreneur, business owner, or even employee. So it's very important, I think, that viewers should also understand that we celebrate these days for a reason, not just for the sake of a public holiday. I want to then move over to the topic that I would like to really unpack, and it's quite an important topic considering what has happened this week. You and I attended the launch of the Enterprise and Supplier Development Transformation Fund just on Monday, and it was quite a big event. There was a lot happening in the agenda. There was a lot happening in terms of attendance. There was quite a number of people that have come through to the event. The Deputy President was also launching this initiative with a few of the ministers that were also present. What were your thoughts on the event? Let's start off there. What were your thoughts on the event?
I think the event was a great event. There are some components that I think I'm going to highlight a bit that are a cause for concern. From a posture point of view, having about 5-6 ministers, it means that there is quite the whole issue of the enterprise and supply development and the growth of small businesses and in particular black-owned businesses. It means that it carries a lot of weight, which is a good thing. The job creation behind it, or the perceived job creation associated with it, is quite good. So the weight and the gravitas that it received, it basically carries a lot. And then also because when the Deputy President mentioned that it's also one of the catalytic projects that will sit in the President's office, it means that it is being taken extremely seriously. So that's the positive side of it.
Yeah, I think from just what you've mentioned, my expectations for the event was not to see the Deputy President or even some of the ministers that were present there, and that was just my personal view and expectation. And when the ministers and Deputy President also were in attendance, I could see that this is something very serious. So to viewers that are watching out there in terms of our session today, I strongly believe, and as Kev was mentioned, I strongly believe this is going to happen. It's just a matter of time. It's about ironing out the details. And like you mentioned, when something is sitting in the presidency's office, it's going to happen. It's going to come. It's just a matter of time of ironing out the finer details. From the launch and from the comments that were made, from the different parties and stakeholders, do you see the light to the end of this concept? Do you foresee that, as much as it is going to happen, do you see it happening this year? Do you see it creating, a good, strong framework? Do you see it working?
Yes, I think it will work. Okay. I think working, the part of will it work or not, I think we quite clear it will work. The issue is that the details around how it works and the elements around the working of the entity of the fund will be the most important part for me. It's not about would it work or not, but do we does it work? Will it work for what it was intended for? And then will there be no other challenges like we've seen in the past? We come into this fund with government, basically perception towards government and government programs is at its lowest, because history tells us, not too many projects that are basically initiated, basically, achieve what they intended to do. And this one is supposed to be a catalytic project to try and meet some of the goals set up in the National Development Plan. And now, when you hear the Deputy President says some of these targets that have to be revised because it's quite clear that they will not be met. So it starts telling you the posture and also the urgency of this whole fund. But in a lot of publications and write-ups, the fund is earmarked to be operational next year in 2026. So this year, what is happening is trying to basically put in, all the frameworks around it, making sure that we can operationalize and we can pass all other legal masters, and how will it basically link up to a couple of other pieces of legislation. So in some of the webinars that we held, what we foresee is that definitely to be run from NEF as basically the running ministry. But then there are certain pieces of legislation that are basically changes, like the PFMA. One person mentioned that is that the best model to use in terms of governing the affairs of the fund, because PFMA by its own design is designed to slow things down. And one of the problems that we pick up is that the agency and the time it takes to respond to support small businesses, then with that level of incongruency and mismatch there. So the mechanics around it, I foresee that being a bit of a challenge.
Yeah, so I think that's what needs to be ironed out, and even with the concept document itself, the extension of the commentary period has been, or the period for commentary has been extended. Originally it was meant to end today, the 7th of May, and it's been extended now to the 28th of May. So it's something that the ministers and also the panelists in the session on Monday appealed to all of the attendees. Please send your comments. I still recall one of the statements being made by I think the Deputy Minister of the DTIC, that if you do not actually mention your comments, if you don't send your comments, you cannot cry foul afterwards to say that we weren't part of the process, because the opportunity was there to actually provide those comments and also solutions. So I think that was also highly emphasized to say, yes, we've got this concept document out. It may not be the best document, but it's a starting point. If you've got solutions, bring it forward to the table. So also appealing to all of those viewers out there, if you've read the document, the concept document, if you've got comments or if you've got solutions or something that you'd like to see changing in the document, please feel free to send through your comments in respect of this ESD Transformation Fund. So I'm looking forward to all the comments. Hopefully we'll get to see some of them floating around. We as the chairman is also going to be commenting against the document. We've also got some thoughts and ideas. But my next question to you is just something that was highlighted even after the session. The private sector has partnered with the Deputy President as well as the DTIC in terms of being a part of this initiative. Is that a true statement, or was that just something that was just mentioned at the session?
I think there's an element of truth to it.
Okay.
I'll tell you why. Remember how government perceives NETLEC as a representative of the private sector, and also then you look at other social partners like BUSA, like
BBC,
like BMF, then BLSA. So you look at these things, and these are entities, these are bodies that are made primarily of corporates. So when they say corporate basically is a partner, yes it is. The question will be through what mechanism. But again, we still have a lot of corporates that are questioning this whole thing at the same time to say, will it really work? We don't trust that it will work because we have seen in the past that it hasn't worked. But again, the concept around this whole fund, in as far as looking at examples like the whole Black Industrialist Fund, the question will be, will this fund replace that? or will that fund be absorbed into this? So there's a lot of clarity issues that basically are not clarity that still needs to be given to say what is the thinking, because as things stands and as a concept code document is the way it's written, there's still a lot of fluff everywhere, and even the people that authored it, you can tell that they're still not too sure of what it will look like, how it will be structured, how it will be designed. And we've seen a lot of funds fail like that. And I'm going to digress slightly. Busa basically tried to create a fund a couple of years ago, probably about 8 years ago or more. They created a fund, and they went to different industries. They can basically put money to the same fund that is earmarked towards the development and growth of black suppliers in particular. What did happen to that? What happened to that fund? Don't know much. Funny enough, one of the people at the MC at the thing asked Ned, what happened to that fund that you created? Can you tell us what we were going to do with? And they avoided the question when you asked about it. And these are the people that are supposed to be, are stakeholders, and these are people that have created a fund that it never went far. And hence, basically, I feel a bit hard done, primarily by Busa and their comments in terms of what do they think about the fund. But there's still a lot of dialogue to be held, there's still a lot of discussion to be held, and there's still a lot of cleaning up in terms of the concept document. But in terms of partnership, the partnership is there through the social partners. The partnership, and can be enhanced and can be cleaned up to make sure that this fund works, because we cannot afford to have another fund failing.
Of course not, Look, I think with anything new, anything brought to the legislative front that is new to the market always will be judged, and also there will always be judgment and skepticism in terms of what is trying to happen here, what are we trying to achieve through this. So I think even with new legislation, when we see amendments taking place, when we saw amendments taking place in the past, and there was a lot of questions, a lot of judgments, is this going to work, is this not going to work? And then it's just a matter of trying to panel beat it as far as possible to get it to a workable state and then build on it. We do have experience as a country based on what you mentioned now in terms of funds, but the success may not be always there. And maybe this one could be, moving into a different direction that could lead to that success. I mean, I would want to see it successful, because who are the beneficiaries? Small businesses, ultimately then our economy, and that's the end goal for us through this fund. So touching on a few of your comments as well, we do take note. One of my important questions also answered on Monday was in relation to existing initiatives. And it was categorically said that this fund is not going to replace existing initiatives, but rather to collaborate. So that's also something that's unclear, and that's also maybe something that will be coming out in the document in the future. Because a lot of our members also had questions around, what's going to happen to my existing projects? I mean, I've been working on this for so long. Do I just pull away from this, put it into a fund, and then that's that? Do I not do anything else? And then also yesterday in our BE Chamber monthly webinar, one of the questions or comments that came through was relating to, is this seen as a sustainable sort of enterprise or supply development initiative? What I mean by that is now you are going to put measured entities, not give measured entities the responsibility of growing the beneficiaries, rather than just putting funds in a pool and then leaving that responsibility of growth up to whoever's going to be part of the fund. Well, what are your thoughts on that? Do you feel like this fund is going to take away the responsibility from measured entities?
I don't think it will take away that responsibility. As it stands, measured entities are struggling to basically implement enterprise development and supply development solutions. They are struggling, and again, they're complaining. If you look at some of the surveys that were conducted by another study by the Big Commission, one of the challenges is that companies and measured entities are complaining, but this is not our core business. So it takes away, from us our time and resources, basically that we're supposed to be using for the business. We now have to, divert those resources towards this.
Exactly.
Now that's basically one thing that comes up. So the need for the fund to basically help to to take away the burden from some businesses that do not want to basically do these things on their own. They see that burden. The need is there. At least in that front, we know that that can work.
Okay.
And it's not about replacing, but also there are companies that basically are quite responsible corporatism. They have the capacity, they have the will, and they need to do that. And let them also do what they can do, because if they have the right will and passion, then they will deliver it.
Yeah, exactly.
So the two avenues should basically be balanced out, and the fund should not be, explicitly for that or against that fully. So we should create that mode and that framework where it allows the both to coexist.
Yeah, and look, I mean, I think that's important because we don't want to take away from great existing initiatives and I mean things that have had impact, but we're also trying to move into a direction where we then also flush out all of the third-party facilitators that have abused this area. And you've got experience in this area where you've got third-party facilitators that are running enterprise and supply development programs that add no value or benefit to the beneficiaries. In some instances, a large monetary amount translates into trading that was never really wanted or needed by that beneficiary, and who actually benefits is the third-party facilitator, where the intended beneficiary is actually worse off. So those are things that we're hoping to see will change in the landscape of enterprise and supply development with this fund, and we're hoping that there's more sustainability attached to benefit the beneficiaries at the end of the day. Okay, but while we start wrapping up, any last thoughts on the fund? You mentioned you do see this working. It's a matter of just panel meeting. Anything that you would want to share with members to take note of, especially around the ESD fund?
I think what is important for me is that we should not continuously criticize the fund. The fund as a concept is very important, and it will basically give the desired result, based or on condition that members and the public and the government work together, number one. Number two, that the proper controls are put in place, and these controls should also be balanced such that they don't hinder, progress. Because sometimes you have over governance that basically delays the whole process. So, and then number three, looking at, let's try to move it away slightly from the government, more to become much more private. For me, I'll be much more comfortable in this space because we know the bureaucracy in the government, and this whole notion of having 3 ministers sitting in the oversight committee and all those other things, I don't think it's creating too many layers. It's not really important. In actual fact, my personal view would say, if NF is identified, let NF be capacitated to basically deliver on the fund. Don't create another couple of entities in that period. It's not necessary. What you'd rather do is strengthen the existence, strengthen the components of the NEF that will ensure that this fund is delivered and implemented properly. So for me, that's what I think will basically help the government to basically, run this properly. Because at the end of the day, it's not about them. It's about the small businesses that needs to basically grow at the right rate, that needs to survive, and that needs to add value to the economy. That's the most important part, and create jobs ultimately.
No, exactly that. I think very powerful words, because that's the end goal, and we must not lose sight of that end goal. And sometimes, while we're trying to get to that end goal, we start to lose sight. We start to get so involved in the process that we forget what we're trying to achieve, and we forget who are the intended beneficiaries. So, Keba, thank you for those those comments. I think very powerful in terms of making sure that we can get to that end goal. Your recommendation on the NEF, I think the National Empowerment Fund, for those that are not familiar, is that they've got experience in this. So why not? They've got experience in terms of managing these types of initiatives. So now it's about capacity to then manage on a larger scale, and also finding individuals that will be able to then manage processes a bit more quicker, manage processes a bit more efficiently, and again achieving our end goals. So thank you for those comments, Keba. I really appreciate it. To our viewers for today, we hope you found our session today insightful. It's quite a big topic that's happening right now, so if you haven't yet submitted your comments regarding the Enterprise and Supply Development Transformation Fund concept document, please do send those comments through. I think every comment is very important, especially around how you can see potential solutions to achieve the end goal in terms of job creation and economic growth. We will be back in our session again next month. We're looking forward to having a chat with one of our implementation managers at the BE Chamber. So we are looking forward to having that session. So thank you very much for listening to us and viewing us today. We appreciate it. Goodbye, everyone.